Right, okay. Bitcoin. We have had a pretty immense move heading right into October, didn't we? It's almost as if we wasn't expecting that. It's been a while since I've done a Bitcoin update, to be honest. I've kind of been tweeting a lot more than doing the videos. Um, so I thought it was probably about time. I'm kind of I'm in a mindset at the moment of, yes, we're paying attention to Bitcoin, but it's sort of we're in the real late stages of the cycle, really late stages of the cycle, and I've seen some tweets of people saying, "Oh, it's just the beginning," which is really laughable. So Bitcoin, I've got an eye on. Of course, I've got an eye on because ultimately Bitcoin is still the asset that is driving the market, driving crypto. Same with ETH. When Bitcoin begins to sell off, the market follows. Okay, we're still in this market. Um, Now, obviously, we have covered a lot on Bitcoin still, over many months. Yes, it's been a while since we've done a Bitcoin update, but we have covered Bitcoin a lot, and everyone knows that we've had this target. Okay, and that target was going to be a potential local top target to a potentially cycle top target. I'm not really interested in timing the top. I'm really not interested in timing the top. I'm interested in the confirmations. If anyone's saying, oh, they can time the top, it's extremely difficult. There's a lot of confirmations and things that come into it. Now, one thing I have always said since 2023 is I do anticipate the Bitcoin cycle top, not all coins, completely different. The Bitcoin cycle top to be Q4 2025. We're obviously in Q4 now. So what we did do was pretty much nail every major local top um in the action in Bitcoin. And to be honest, the local tops weren't really local tops. Okay, they were just, sort of these minor pullbacks. But for altcoins, completely different story. Okay, they really sold off. And again, same happened here, right? But you can actually see we are still trading within this. Obviously the larger range that we've got going on here now. Okay, right? But we are actually still trading within this -2 to -2 point standard deviation target from the weekly CISD model we had all the way down here. And if you remember, we had this weekly CISD model from 76 to 78,000. And we're still trading within this weekly CISD model. What I'm going to say is, I do believe that the next bear market for Bitcoin is going to look like sort of, we're possibly going to trade towards low 80s to 90k. And I don't know if we're potentially going to trade lower. It really depends how much higher we go. And obviously, I have higher targets. I think I did cover this in one of my last Bitcoin updates, um, which I'll get to in a minute. I'm fast forwarding a little bit. Okay. So, of course, we traded low. We traded into this inversion. Okay, you can see the daily inversion here. Had the bounce from the OTE model. We've traded up, taken buy side liquidity, i.e. new all-time high. And what we actually did was we actually closed outside of the previous all-time high. So if we closed inside, it would have been a lot bearish for me. Okay, so this up close candle, if we actually closed this up close candle back below this high over here, would have been pretty bearish. Okay. What I will say is that yes, what we have done is we have got sort of, let's use the magnet. Okay, paying special attention to what over here. what actually happened over here. Got a similar thing going on right now as well. Okay, so can you see how we traded? Okay, so close candles, right? We have the swing point, which is manipulation. This is the buy stop point, okay? This being our reversal candle, right? And then we have the continuation lower, okay? We're calling this candle 1. Candle 2 is the swing point, i.e. the beginning of the reversal. Candle 3 is the continuation of that, okay? Or what we anticipate is the continuation, right? We've got candle 1. Okay, candle 2 is the swing point, right? Yes, it's slightly different in that this was candle 2, i.e. a down close candle, whilst this candle 2 is a up close candle. But you can see candle 3 is that continuation candle of a potential reversal pattern that we might actually have here, right? So it's very important where this daily close is going to be too, okay? So ultimately what we've had, which is a signal between both sort of fractals, is we've had the buy stop hunt, okay, on the previous day high. We've traded close back inside, and then the following candle has been a continuation candle, okay. But however, we have actually closed above this up close candle has actually closed above this high, so I can't be too sort of cautious. Okay, I'm still siding with we are actually going to trade higher. Okay, but I am very mindful that this is a pretty big displacement move. So, do we just retrace a little bit sort of a little bit more, retrace a little bit more before continuing higher? There are plenty of other sort of occasions, a little bit like here, right? Which is exactly the same thing on a daily time frame as what we've got at the moment. Okay, so you can see buy stop hunt. This is our candle 2, okay, i.e. sort of signs of potential reversing. Candle 3 being a big displacement move. Okay, this is the beginning of this sort of the continuation distribution candle, which we've got there, which is perfect. Okay, and that's exactly what we have got there. So typically with candle 4 is you would expect continuation, all right? But of course this is a up close candle at the moment. We're going to close this out as an up close candle, as a bullish candle. Is it a reversal candle? No. Okay. Because what we're actually doing in this up close candle is we're actually just consolidating, and we're consolidating between the previous day low and previous day high here, okay, which is Tuesday, right? So this is what I'm looking for at the moment. This is just consolidation, right? I'd actually like to see maybe the low taken out here and then trade higher to indicate sort of manipulation, then reversal higher, all right? But at the moment we're consolidating, so it's kind of like, okay, well, where do we go now? Weekly is a pretty different story. Okay, it's not looking too great. It's really not looking too great on the weekly. So this is where sort of a little bit of my concern comes into play with Bitcoin at the moment. And of course it's Wednesday. Okay, it's midweek, so there's still plenty of time to reclaim this high. Right, let's get rid of some of this, shall we? Okay, right, this is our previous week range. Okay, previous week low, previous week high. What have we done here? we've taken previous week high. Okay, previous week high was our drawn liquidity. Okay, which we've now taken. Right, we've taken the drawn liquidity being previous all-time high. Okay, in this big distribution candle, big displacement candle, and we've now manipulated previous week high, and we're sort of just consolidating now within previous week range. This weekly candle is the candle of interest now. How do we close this weekly candle out? Because it might very well be that we close this weekly candle a little bit like how it is now, and then all we've done is created a gap, okay, a bullish fair value gap, in which we've got the equilibrium level here. So this is what I was mentioning earlier from the daily time frame. Can you see how I'm aligning my time frames? We've taken substantial liquidity, okay, liquidity there. Okay, don't know why we've used the arrow. It's definitely the wrong thing to be using. Taking previous all-time high there, taking previous week high here. So now do we come to just retrace into the equilibrium? Okay, begin to position long, and we get that final squeeze higher. A little bit like this. Okay, this is where I would eye up some longs, personally. I'm not eyeing up any longs here unless we get a confirmed breakout. Okay, because ultimately this is just a bit of consolidation right now, range and structure. So yes, I would take the breakout trade, but we have manipulated previous week high. Do we now just begin to retrace? Eye up potential longs here. You want to see the confirmations and signals, and then we trade higher again. Okay. So they're just a few things for awareness. Of course, it's midweek. A lot can happen midweek. Right. From the weekly CISD model, we do have weekly CISD model. We do have higher targets. I've mentioned these before. Those high targets were the targets in Q4 to be hit in Q4. Okay, 146. What about 145 to 153? Right, that's the Q4 target. Could we get there? Who knows? That's my target from the CISD model. We've done pretty great so far, calling sort of the major local tops before a pullback. Standard 1.5 deviation target. Okay, again, targets here. So this is what I'm ultimately looking at now, right? And then we, possibly trade lower. And this is kind of why I'm saying, is the next bear market sort of just this move to, sort of here, rolls over. We actually just trade to low 90s to 80s. Okay. Because ultimately that move would be, it's not quite like a 50-60% move, but it's 40%. All right. Maybe we do take this low and take the lows out over here. But it's pretty evident we're not going to head back towards 15, 20k, is it? Yeah, could we go back to 40s? But that's one hell of a move. That's one hell of a move. 70% move, 70% downside. So I'm kind of thinking this at the moment. And then, we've got this, we begin to form a bit of a base, okay, around here. Right, and then, 2027 comes around. And that's when you begin to target sort of these absurd 200, 300 targets. So that's what I'm going with at the moment with Bitcoin. I think, yes, Q4 is still setting up to be that typical seasonal trade. But as far as altcoins go, yes, we want that final squeeze in Bitcoin. It's sort of, again, like I mentioned this before, think of how capital trickles down to the markets. I might actually make another video, but gold is now over $4,000. Humongous. Okay. There is a flight to safety assets and a flight to risk assets too, because there's this possible debasement of currency. All right. Um, values being completely lost in currencies just in its entirety. So everyone's going towards this flight into assets, which makes up for a great possible melt up, right? And I think ultimately this is what I'm anticipating, this is what I'm expecting, this is what I want. It might not happen how I expect, but that melt up season, we've got this in gold at the moment, this big melt up. I am going to create another video. So, do we then get this melt up in Bitcoin? This will be the melt up. Melt up before the crash. Then you see altcoins melt up. Okay, you're actually seeing some altcoins already melt up, but you typically have first movers, and then you have the real laggers, right? Which make for absolutely fabulous rotational trades, right? You rotate out of those first movers into those laggers, but ultimately you are actually, positioning into cash, right? So, I'm going to end the video there. Okay, it was just a quick positioning update. Check for how this weekly close forms, because the weekly close is a very important indication of, do we begin to retrace, and is that retracement, is it a larger reversal, or is it a retracement here, you begin to buy at longs, we get the confirmations and signals to actually target higher. Okay, this is like with all weekly closes, when you get a big displacement move like this, where you take actually a previous all-time high, setting you all-time high in, you want to see continuation. But at the moment, we're not actually seeing that continuation model, because this up close candle closed back inside the larger range we've got over here. Okay. And now this candle, okay, actually taking previous week high, which could be considered manipulation. So I'm now really interested in what this third weekly candle looks like. Okay. Because our only job is to predict what the next week's candle, the next day's candle, the next 4-hour candle, the next 1-hour candle actually looks like. Okay, so we will end it there. All right. Please comment, please like. Really do appreciate the support. Just remember, we have got a Discord. Okay, so join the Discord and subscribe if you're not subscribing already. All right. Thank you.